And I've been out of the hemp space for the last 2 years because I had a non-compete. And so I've been, involved in other natural product and organic product companies, investing in them and helping the founders grow the business. And I get pitched a lot on different hemp projects. I'm excited about some and may make some investments there. But I do have a lot of scars on my back from operating 20 years in the industry, and so I won't be getting back in running a company. I can tell you that.
Hey guys, it's Mandi with Global Hemp Association. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining. I'm excited about the opportunity to build a relationship and connect this supply chain. I mean, after all, that's why we started the association. Our association was built on the foundation of connecting supply chain, building relationships, and helping you grow your business. Anyone from farmers, manufacturers, and distributors, people that are passionate about the supply chain, and those creating products selling into biofuels, plastics, textiles, construction, and building materials. Anyways, welcome everybody. Hello, if you're chiming in or joining. I'm really excited about today's session or today's hour chat. Chat with Mandi. Coffee, I guess, is almost what we're doing. I need to start bringing my coffee every day. Anyways, when you do chime in, see, there you go, Mike. You're smart. I usually do have one, and I didn't. So, but when you do chime in, please say hello. Let us know where you're at. Ask questions. Mike's got lots of experience. I'm excited to share a little bit about who you are and what you do. But before we do, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors and say thank you. Shout out to Hemp Today, one of our media partners, Bob Moore Financing, Ample Accounting Services, Integrated Compliance Services, and Greenlight Payments. But anyways, okay, without further ado, I'm awful at that part. And I wanted to get started because I want to dive into this and get to know you a little bit better, Mike. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, how did you get to where you are, all the good stuff.
Sure, yeah. Well, my name is Mike Fata. I'm based in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We'd say the center of the hemp universe. And my story is I grew up with a poor single mom and dropped out of school when I was 13 so I could start working. And then I fell prey to the fast food movement and found myself very unhealthy and weighing over 300 pounds when I was 18 and then became sick and tired of being sick and tired and decided to do something about it. And that's when I turned to kind of all things health. And that led me to hemp, which led me to co-founding Manitoba Harvest in 1998. And then spent a good 20 years growing Manitoba Harvest into the global leader in the hemp food industry. And then successfully exited the business. And over the last couple of years, I've had more time on my hands to get involved in other natural product companies and do a bunch of investment and mentorship and advising companies. Yeah.
What's been something that you've seen really transition throughout your experience? I mean, you've been in it for 20 plus years, right? Within the hemp industry and watching we were just kind of talking back line about, or offline, about where the message really is. But, what has been something that's really been impactful for you as you've seen shift within the industry?
Well, I think I said it to you when we were chatting there. Hemp isn't strange anymore. In 1998, and even in the mid 1990s, when we were lobbying the government to legalize hemp in Canada, hemp was very strange. People thought that you were, just out of this world when you talked about, being in the hemp business or supporting hemp. And I think 99% of the audience or 99% of consumers thought that way. And so now you fast forward like 25 years, and hemp is a valued product, in high demand in a lot of places, and so that's probably the biggest change. It was very weird, and now it's kind of moving more towards mainstream. Probably more mainstream in Canada even than in the U.S., just because hemp's been legal here for an extra 20 years. But I would say that's probably the biggest change over that time.
Okay. So what would you say made the biggest impact to bring that movement, to make it so that it's not weird anymore, or so that it's not such a faux pas topic, right?
Yeah, lots of education. Manitoba Harvest spent 2 decades going out and educating the trade, the public, the media on what hemp was, how healthy the seed was, how good even the fiber was, that it wasn't a drug, it was related to marijuana, but you didn't have to fear it, and just over and over and over again, samples and demos in stores, and literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trade shows. So, it was just sharing the information, because there was a lot of misinformation from when hemp was outlawed and made illegal, and the kind of the misinformation campaigns back even from the 50s and 60s, and that needed to be straightened out. So it took kind of years to the first 10 years, it was still very challenging because people were misinformed. But when the media started writing the proper story about that hemp was a opportunity, not a threat, then it started to trend, more so that way.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just going to ask, what was that message that they needed to hear when it started to actually make that trend, right? Because CBD is really taking the market here in the United States, especially.
I think CBD ruined the market. I don't know if it took the market. I mean, it became the gold rush where a lot of people came in and said all these farmers wanted to grow CBD, and companies were making CBD. But the reality is, aside from the regulatory issues with CBD, I think there's just a tremendous amount of oversupply that happened, and where the majority of and CBD or other cannabinoids are they have a lot of benefit to them, and the terpenes and stuff that hemp offers, but really the seed and the fiber of the crop are the two main opportunities, I think, for hemp. I think back to your question, the message was, just getting out of how nutritious the hemp seed was, of a rich source of essential fatty acids and plant-based protein. And, it timed not only a bunch of media, but I know when we gained distribution in Costco, Manitoba Harvest got hemp hearts into Costco, and that was in 2009, 2010. That's really when I guess the mainstreaming of hemp started, because a lot of consumers could say, hey, well, if Costco is selling it, then it has to be okay, right? It can't be like this bad thing. I think that was a major turning point.
I agree. And I think it's something that we're searching for, all these other areas and countries that are even further behind than the United States, right? Is how do they build this supply chain, and how do they deliver this message? And what is what's the solution that they need to hear, that people that are not within the industry or that are not educated need to hear? And I really do. I think it's this opportunity zone and the reality, and how do we deliver that, right? So what advice do you have then when it comes to building the supply chain? We're constantly hearing this chicken and egg, back and forth of, we can't get investment capital until we have supply, and we can't have supply until we get investment. We can't bring down this price. What is some feedback you have as you've built the supply chain and now are on the other side of, advising and consulting? And what are some solutions, and how do companies go after the answers and the solutions?
Yeah, it depends, really on the product. I think the food was a little bit easier than the fiber, just because of the scale that was needed. So we started really as kind of like a farmer's market would in other kind of food products. You could make a small batch of, at that time it was a couple hundred bottles of hemp oil, and then go and sell them, and then go back and make 500 bottles, and kind of scale up that way, because we could use other food processing infrastructure that was available to us. Where I've been through some of the fiber challenges. You have to have actually a pretty big scale to do hemp fiber well, and so you do get into that. Well, we can't get to that scale unless we raise a significant amount of investment dollars, and no one's going to put the investment dollars in until we really prove a product market fit, and that the business and the people involved have the expertise there. So you see some of that now in Canada, like the fiber starting to take off, and because there has been enough years of research, I guess, through, and to get to your answer on some of those more challenging aspects of commercializing hemp, utilizing some universities and research centers to kind of prove that there's a product opportunity, and make some small batch samples that you can get commitments from companies for offtake of those materials. And then when you have kind of those interested parties and that opportunity there, then it's really about raising capital and building it. But it's tough, that's not an easy, it's not an easy thing to prove product market fit if you need a large scale to actually make that product in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure anybody that's listening that's in this industry is like, yes, this is exactly what we're up against, right? So tell me some of the biggest perks. Like, what have been some of the biggest rewards that you've had throughout your career, and specifically dealing in the hemp industry?
Well, I think selling the business for $419 million was a pretty big reward. I think that was, and it's not about the money. I think it was really about, and we sold Manitoba Harvest twice. There was two very large deals in our industry, but I think it was showing that we did actually create success. We created enough success that other large companies wanted to buy our success, and that was a benefit to all of our team members that were involved that put that kind of effort there. But I don't think business as being kind of one big win or big accolade. It's a million little wins added up that really create success. So all the times that we kind of took the next stage up, like expanded into mainstream grocery stores, like Loblaws or Kroger or Walmart. Those were huge times for me and celebrations for our team. Same thing with Costco, winning awards. Just being known as a business that was kind of leading the global movement on hemp foods. Those are the things that really felt good outside of the money that we were making.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and making an impact, right? And understanding the value of the product that you're sending, right? That you're putting out there is.
Yeah, I think, it also, we spent a lot of time. I mean, there was 3 different divisions of Manitoba Harvest: our farm operations, our manufacturing operations, and then our sales and marketing team on our brand. But the farm operations, we taught a lot of farmers how to be successful with growing the crop. It was our team out in the field, from seed selection and how to, from an agronomy standpoint, how to be successful growing that crop. Also working with a number of producers to help them to transition into organic agriculture and more regenerative agriculture. And I think those are for me personally, that's being the change that we wish to see in the world. And it made me feel really good.
Okay, so talk to me about that a little bit. Regenerative agriculture and some of those hurdles that we're seeing within the industry, because more and more the mission around hemp is around regenerative agriculture, and hemp is a tool that's used within those practices.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious.
Regenerative agriculture is a newer term. I've been into organic for a long time. And so I'm a big believer in organic agriculture. But I think there's regenerative organic, and there's also people that are growing kind of conventional agriculture, but adding some regenerative elements to it. Being more mindful, I guess, is agriculture's been. Farmers have been sold like bigger pieces of equipment, more chemicals, more tools. And kind of running that playbook, but then you have this new generation, I think, that are actually trying to understand, more of the soil health, soil chemistry, how they think like a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, and longer for their farms, and build more of a healthy soil. Really, at the end of the day, it's easy to think about that in your backyard. Like, hey, you can make a little compost and put compost in your garden, and your garden grows better. But when you're doing it on the scale of thousands or tens of thousands of acres, that's when it really becomes more of a commercialization challenge.
Okay, so can you share a little bit about volume? When we talk about the commercialization, about the volume of Manitoba, what is acreage to fulfill a need, and where is opportunity then, outside of what you guys are already fulfilling?
Yeah. That's why I can only talk to up until when we sold the company in 2019, and then I got off the bus, so to speak. But Manitoba Harvest had like 50,000 acres of hemp, and that cycled between the years, because Mother Nature, you have like bumper crop years, and you have a good amount extra supply, and then there's years that you need to plan for drought or other conditions that would challenge the supply. So usually we're looking at it for like a 2-year kind of window for our supply, but around 100 plus farmers growing 50,000 acres. And for the hemp food market, hemp hearts in Canada got up to 10% of households consume hemp hearts. In the U.S., it's like 1 or 2% of households. And so, to answer your question, how much is Manitoba Harvest supplying? It has had a good amount, like 75% plus of the market share of hemp foods, but the opportunity to expand is 10x. Both in the U.S. and still to kind of double that in Canada and then elsewhere in the world. I think the U.S. and Canada can be global suppliers and really offer hemp seed and grain products as export to many countries around the world.
Have you seen a big transition for consumer demand and what they're looking for? I mean, especially being in the health food space in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's constantly been growing. More education, more sampling to consumers, more interest in hemp foods. It used to be more of the primary products like hemp hearts, hemp oil, hemp protein. Now you're going to find, like many other kind of protein or fat kind of commodity products, they're in a number of things. So now you can go and get your hemp cereal, your hemp bread, your hemp yogurt, your hemp milk, and I guess it's easier than ever for consumers to go out there and find hemp foods in their local grocery store, but not necessarily in that kind of primary product. For a number of years, it was more sold as a primary product, which I'm a big believer in hemp hearts. I've been eating 5 pounds of hemp hearts a month for like 20 plus years, and it's just a staple in my diet. I like it better than flaxseed. I like it better than chia seed, and I know a number of consumers are in that space. So I think there's still opportunity to expand with more education and sampling.
Okay, so can you talk to me a little bit about the nutritional benefits for those that don't know? And I know a very high level, but what are some things people should be paying attention to about hemp protein or hemp hearts, or what's the difference? How are they processed? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, everything's made from the hemp seed, and the hemp seed is a pretty balanced seed on its own. It is one of the richest sources of omega-3 and omega-6, so the good fats, the essential fatty acids, but also plant-based protein, and the protein, the structure of the protein is like highly digestible. That's why that's why a lot of consumers, that's why a lot of people like it. And then it's a decent fiber source, the bran or the hull of the seed. And so when you manufacture different products, you get, I guess, increased benefit. When you take the shell off and you just package the hemp heart is mostly fat and protein. And so, that's the number one product in the market is hemp hearts. And because of not only the nutritional profile, but the versatility as well, you can sprinkle it on salad, cereal, put it into yogurt, you blend it into a smoothie. And then, basically the other protein and oil are made from crushing the seed, and you get an oil, and you get a byproduct, which is the hemp meal, and that hemp meal is milled down, and then you can mechanically sift it to increase the protein or make high protein flours, or you could take it into further processing like you would a soy or pea and make it into a protein concentrate or even a protein isolate.
Okay, so what are the oils used for? Like an avocado oil?
Yeah, well, hemp, because hemp, it's similar to flaxseed oil. It's a nutritional oil because it's rich in essential fatty acids, so it has a very low smoke point. You don't want to fry with it. If you're frying with things, you want to fry with like a coconut oil or more of a saturated fat, even an avocado or an olive oil, because their monounsaturated fats are going to be more stable. But oils like hemp and flax and chia should be really best in a cold application. So, putting it salad dressings or other dressings and dips when it's not cooked, or if you're putting it into cooked foods, as a finishing oil after you've cooked the foods. But hemp oil is also used in industrial kind of applications as well, body care and cosmetics. It's really good for the skin. You can also, hemp and flax were used for paints because of their drying nature. And so there's many uses for the oil, but as a food oil, not as a frying oil, as a cold application or a finishing oil.
Oh, great. Great information. Michael, it's good to see you. And everybody else that's on, hello, please drop a note if have not yet. Hello, Kayla, I saw you jumped on. Michael, great information and education. Are these videos archived? Would really like to re-listen and take notes. Yes, Michael, actually they are. They're all on our YouTube channel at Global Hemp Association. And then also, if you join our platform, hemphallway.com, you'll be able to access all of our content, transcribed notes. We are membership based. So there's different levels of memberships for different content that you receive, but there's something like 400 hours available. And so this is just another exciting hour, I guess. But anyways, okay. So challenges, talk to me about like biggest challenges or things to avoid that you can, being in a position that you have built the supply chain. And then maybe can we talk about the supply chain a little bit about how did you build this out? What did this look like? And
yeah, well, I think the biggest challenge for any business, but for sure in the hemp business, is regulatory challenges. Because if you're bound by regulations, then the CBD industry in the U.S. is facing it right now. But we struggled for a number of years, even after hemp was legal in Canada. The way that the regulations were written by Health Canada were pretty restrictive for and I'd use an example. A farmer had to get their license before they could plant their hemp seed, but to get their license, they had to say which field they were going to plant their hemp seed, and they didn't know which field they were going to plant their hemp seed until spring, until they got a good understanding of the field. And so strange regulatory things that made it really challenging to operate. Obviously, it's a lot more severe if it's a when the DEA came out in 2001, right after we launched in the US, and said hemp foods were illegal, even though that wasn't the truth, that was like a regulatory issue. And so people were confused and thought they couldn't sell the product. Right now, it's the FDA is being very clear that you can't sell CBD federally as a supplement or a food. And so, I think regulations is some of the most challenging thing.
Yeah.
Second to that would be your question, I think, around supply chain and like really setting up a supply chain to get a consistent quality product out. When you're dealing with like a natural food or even organic agriculture, it's not easy. It takes up a lot. It takes a lot of systems and processes and a certain amount of scale to be able to get it right every day. And if you get hemp seed wrong, either from the growing, the harvesting, the storage, or the manufacturing, you're gonna get rancidity in the oils and rancidity in the product, and then it goes from like being one of the tastiest, nuttiest, nicest foods to like just taste horrible, and consumers aren't going to want to buy it. So I think that supply chain, and that's really how we outcompeted our competition at Manitoba Harvest, is we just put so much effort right onto the supply chain. And we were, we're based in Manitoba, which has been like the hemp capital of the universe. And
it was no small feat either, was it? Can you speak? Somebody else Tyler had a really good question. Is how did you navigate the Health Canada issues?
With community, so we set up the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, or the National Association, and got all the different hemp companies and farmers and suppliers and manufacturers all involved in the association. I just found over the years that one company trying to fight the government or to lobby the government is really, really challenging. But a nonprofit industry association, you can get a better voice. And so I'd say that's how we dealt with Health Canada. But the reality is, hemp was legalized in 1998 in Canada, and we didn't get our first regulatory review, like saying, hey, let's take the law and look at how you set up the hemp regulations, until 10 years later. And so there was many, many years of kind of just struggling, because it was there was kind of things that just didn't make a lot of sense in there. But it was a community-based approach through the nonprofit.
Awesome. There's a question that just came in too. What if you're using the seeds on the product? What is your secondary product or your byproducts, and what's the stream look like for that? And where is it going?
Yeah, it depends on the variety that was grown. So Manitoba Harvest worked with several varieties. If you get a shorter flowering variety, then most of the crop is seed and the flower, and the residual fiber wasn't utilized. It was either like tilled back into the soil, or it just wasn't taken off. If you're growing more what we call a dual purpose crop, they would be much taller, and then you'd have the flower and seed that you harvest, and then there would be residual fiber left over. The challenge has been over the last 20 years in Canada anyway, there wasn't anyone that was doing anything with the fiber. And so some farmers would bale the fiber because they needed to take it off their field because it was too much to like till back into the soil, but there wasn't a market for it. Now you have in certain regions in Alberta and that you have fiber manufacturers, and so they're looking for like that secondary offtake from the crop, because it's actually a lower cost if they're instead of growing like fiber only varieties.
Okay, so kind of leading into that and the secondary products, what specifically are problems which need to be addressed, solved with existing decortication processes, technology, or marketing? And hi, Robert. It's good to see you.
That's a good question, Robert. I think, I think the real challenge is that the fiber that comes off the field can be very inconsistent, too mature, not mature enough, and so your downstream processing has to be able to accommodate for the fluctuations, even the varieties or the conditions that the crop is exposed to. Even like 100 miles apart from each other or in different fields can be totally different. And so I think setting up decortication and separation that has the flexibility to deal with those inconsistencies in the crop is what's going to set strong companies apart from each other.
Okay, well, great questions. Okay, so what do you have planned next? Now that you've kind of had this exit, what are you really involved in? What's driving your passion here?
I've been a hempster for 20 something years, but I'm also, I'm a big natural food, natural product guy. It's been part of my lifestyle since I lost the weight. And so, and I've been out of the hemp space for the last 2 years because I had a non-compete. And so I've been, involved in other natural product and organic product companies, investing in them and helping the founders grow the business. And I get pitched a lot on different hemp projects. I'm excited about some and may make some investments there, but I do have a lot of scars on my back from operating 20 years in the industry, and so I won't be getting back in running a company. I could tell you that. I say I'm a recovering entrepreneur still.
Yes, that's fair. That's very fair. So what would you say fuels outside of what about the natural health? Or the health and wellness sector? It's such a big and broad sector. Is it, healthy eating, food, lifestyle? Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. My interest, is that what you're asking, Mandy?
Yeah.
I think it's all. But I healed my body and lost the weight through natural eating. I don't. And we say, what is natural eating? I generally avoid chemicals in my food, and that means preservatives and food colorings and additives. And I relate to being more, a Mediterranean diet, but like highly unprocessed food, because that's what makes me feel good all the time, each day. And then I've seen other people go through similar life transformations by simply cleaning up what they put in their mouth. I don't think people understand how much of an impact the things that you put in your mouth and the things you put on your skin have an impact on your health. And if you change that up, and I've followed more of the lifestyle of some of the natural food pioneers in our industry that were into clean eating and juicing and cleansing, and lived healthy until they're in their 90s. And so that's kind of what drives me, not only personally as a consumer, but also to offer more of that information and offer more of those products out to the marketplace, because it makes me feel good when other people change their health and feel good.
That's awesome. How much of the message do you think is being heard on the investment side and Capitol Hill from the farmers? Or how much of a disconnect? What I'm starting to see is this big disconnect from the farm to end product, right? And this need to connect that. What's your opinion there?
Yeah, I think there is probably a disconnect. I'd go back to trade associations and the kind of work that you're trying to do and others are trying to do to bring the supply chain together, because and it's not new to hemp, right? Like you have wheat farmers that are like, wait, how come I'm growing the wheat and I'm making pennies, and then someone that's making bread makes all the money, or the consumers want something different because now all of a sudden they want gluten free, and so it changes up what the demands are at the supply chain or at agriculture. And so I think when you get together, when an industry group gets together and you can have all parts of the value chain represented, then that information can be shared. And as it relates to kind of lobbying efforts, like consumers have the power because they have the dollars. They're voting with their dollars, and they also vote politically. So it's good to align with the consumers to get some of those regulatory or those political messages across in a meaningful way to the politicians.
For sure. What do you think the next big markets are that we should be paying attention to? Because I think Canada's definitely leading the chart on the hemp hearts and food sector.
Yeah. I think food, as we talked about, food I think has a tremendous amount of way to expand still, but I think fiber now is finally here. I like what's
fiber into what product do you think?
Fiber, just taking hemp stock and decorticating it and separating the herd and then the different fiber strands and then putting those out to market as
raw material right now. The B2B.
Yes. As primary products, and then those are being used for development of further end consumer kind of products, right? I think if you follow, like, Canadian Rockies hemp is a good example. What Aaron and Tilray are doing there. I mean, I think they're actually getting to a place where they're commercializing. As soon as you have commercial and you have scale, look out, because then some of these companies that want to buy and want to incorporate hemp into their construction grade materials or their textiles or whatever they're using it for need a certain volume. They need a certain quality. They need a consistency of quality and get at that right price. And so I think we're going to start seeing that in the next year or a couple of years here from Canada, and then the U.S. should be all over that. The different parties that are that maybe have been overly distracted in the last couple of years on CBD in the U.S. should turn their eye to the true benefit of what hemp fiber can be and the commercial opportunity that it can generate in the marketplace.
Well, and it's such a different product, right? It's really a different message. It's grown differently. It's manufactured differently. It's processed differently. It's a different product completely. So when we talk about the end consumer product, right, and as we're trying to drive consumer awareness to the value of hemp, do you think that it's going to be competitive with plastics or construction and building materials? Like, what is the big? Well, there's a reason it's not available now, and the political tie to why it's not, right? And the industries that were behind that. Where do you think that it's really going to butt up against, or who are we going to be butting up against on the big picture, do you think?
I think the opportunity and the challenge is the same. It's very broad. So the opportunity is very broad and the challenges are very broad. But some of the things there, I like the what I've seen from the some of the hemp pressed wood products, the fiber boards and things like that. I think if you could make a product like that and it would stand up in the building code to the same as a virgin or traditional wood product that had the same pricing. I don't even know if it has to be as competitive, but if you could, that would be great. And then consumers get the benefit of the social and environmental benefit that can bring instead of traditional logging and forestry. That's an example that as soon as that matches up properly, then it is a how much of the market share of that traditional product can the hemp item take? Same thing with plastic as well. I just think I know that it won't be. Goes back to the day like when we first, hemp was first legal. It used to be, you think about hemp textiles. You'd have a hemp shirt. It would be like a box, and it would be so scratchy you wouldn't even want to wear it. And people would buy it and they'd say, I'm supporting hemp. I'm going to buy a hemp shirt. Nowadays, is anyone buying that? No. It has to be as trendy, as good feeling as from a fiber. And so every product needs to be like that across the board. It needs to be competitive to whatever the incumbent is in the category that you're trying to displace.
Well, because reality is consumers are not going to be spending a whole bunch more money on something that they're going to shelf consciously, right? If it's just, they're willing to spend 20% more typically on a product that's competitive.
Yeah. And it's not, I think it's even before that, Mandy, it's about consumer mindset is about solve my problem. Okay. So if you're buying wood and then you have hemp wood and the hemp wood's more expensive and it isn't as versatile, that's not solving any problem. If there is a problem there of the environmental benefits that hemp can solve, but it's further down the decision tree. If it costs more or it's not as good, it's not going to drive that purchase. But if you're truly solving problems, like, I could use that example in food. People loved essential fatty acids, but didn't like flaxseed. A lot of consumers didn't like the taste of flaxseed. Hemp hearts solved the problem because they tasted better than flaxseed and they offered those essential fatty acids. And so, there's that example all the way down the hemp fiber chain too. I think the cannabinoids and even CBD are trying to do similar, right? Like saying, hey, maybe you're taking this other herbal remedy, maybe you're taking this supplement or this drug, and this may help to offset that. But you need to solve a consumer's problem first for them to offset whatever the product was that they're buying in the first place.
I love it. See, and this is great. We're trying to evolve, and you see this in the hemp industry. We're very passionate. We get it. We see the benefits, right? But conveying it to make it a consumer product so that it drives this need and the demand. How do you see, Drew has a really good question right here. How do you see the carbon market evolving?
I think there's probably opportunity, but I think it's secondary. I think the primary benefit needs to be, solve that consumer problem on the product side, and then the additional benefit could be, hey, you're generating carbon credits, or I think credits are, I think, down to the business itself, maybe like Manitoba Harvest did that. And we became a carbon neutral or even carbon negative company. And some of that was with the organic hemp that we grew ourselves, but then we did some other offsets and things. I think it's part of the opportunity for a business. I don't think it's the whole thing. Were
you able to trade, I guess, buy and sell or trade your credits, your carbon credits? There's so many people. Okay. Yeah. There's so many people that are asking and curious about that part. And I see it evolving as like you said, a revenue or an additional revenue to those farmers or to that supply chain, whoever owns that earned credit, but definitely not the business. There is a lot of talk of it though, Mike, within the industry about, where those credits are going and how is it, I guess, allocated and who owns it along that supply chain and how is that tracked? There's just a lot of unknown still. So
yeah, that's why I think it's not. That's why I think it's far from ever being the primary. But it could be a secondary opportunity for people involved.
Sure. What's the biggest bottleneck within your supply chain processes?
I think it's balance. You can't have an oversupply, you can't have an undersupply, both from a farm gate. You can't produce more at the farm than you can manufacture, and even getting down to kind of genetics and making sure that you have a steady supply, the right amount of supply of breeder and planting seed. All of that was, it's like a Rubik's cube to keep solving every season, every year, and especially at scale. The challenges have been, major oversupply, what you see in the U.S. now, and was predicted after the U.S. legalized hemp. It's just happened on CBD more so than grain or fiber, but I think it'll also come on grain and fiber in the U.S. as more demand picks up there. Oversupply, too much supply, undersupply because no one can grow it or wants to grow it because it's not profitable to grow, and then that swing back and forth, it gets really challenging to maintain a consistency in the supply chain.
Those are all very alarming things, especially on the finance side. I still am at this chicken and egg of solving this problem. And I think it really does come back to that consumer demand and solving that consumer problem, right? And having that solution. Great advice. Realistically, numbers mean a lot. There's a message to convey there. This LinkedIn, unfortunately, I can't see who it is, so I don't know what happened. But also said that, and I think this is a great point, that feels like the carbon credits become a consumer advertising piece. The consumers are starting to understand the value of the carbon footprint more so and what it's doing. What's your opinion there?
I think so. I could tell you in food, I don't know outside of food, but I could tell you in food that the benefit to the consumer is like 75% taste in food, and all the other benefits are 25%. And all the other benefits could be the nutritional benefits, the environmental benefits. So like, hey, this company is wind powered or has carbon credits or offsets and the social responsibility. It's a B Corp. All of that is so secondary to consumer off the primary benefit. Food, the primary benefit is taste. But I'm sure the same would be in kind of hemp construction materials or otherwise. Like it's not the primary benefit. It's definitely a secondary benefit.
See, this is good to know, because it really puts into perspective for me staying on track when we talk about how do we grow this industry and what's important in the opportunity to take obviously products to market. And it seems so elementary, but I think that we get off track sometimes within our conversations. Bill has a really good question here. What's the biggest carbon credits, or the biggest carbon credits come from replacing fossil fuels? Have you looked into biofuel production from grain stock whose fibers value is low?
We did some research on it was more on the hemp biodiesel side more than the ethanol side, and just hemp could come nowhere near what like canola and some of the other oil seed crops would from a cost standpoint when used for biodiesel. I'm not sure on that equation for ethanol, but I think the same is true. I think there's a lot lower cost crops that can feed into that ethanol system than hemp. Maybe if it's the fiber is a secondary offtake after the grain, but I still think there's a higher end market, and there needs to be a higher end market for hemp, just because of the input of the seed costs, the growing costs, and some of the equipment that you need to properly handle the crop. I think that those fuel things are really low cost. You need really low cost sources to be impactful there.
Gotcha. Okay. And I don't know if this one's outside of your wheelhouse or not, but what do you think the future of hemp fabric is in terms of acceptance or adoption into daily fashion opposed to cotton and linen? I feel it's probably along the same answer, but
I think there's a huge opportunity, but it's not because it's hemp. You need to make something that is, we talked before, is just as soft, just as performance based, just as
longer,
trendy.
better.
And then the benefit could be, it's more environmentally friendly to grow or whatever. That's a secondary benefit. The primary benefit, it needs to compete performance wise with those and cost even wise with those other products.
Eventually, I'd love to see the perks that everybody talks about, about the antimicrobial factor, or the way that it wicks moisture, or that how long it lasts. I'd love to see those as our benefits, right, up front, but cost has to be cost competitive.
For sure. Yeah. Or you're going to sell one when you need to sell 1,000 or tens of thousands to get to the right scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I'm really, really pleased. I'm super stoked that you came and joined me today. What is something that we can do to support you? What are you looking for next, and how do people get involved or really support what you're doing?
I That's a good question, Manny. I've been spending most of my time giving back. So if people aren't familiar with it, they can check out our mass mentorship, a give back project at fatafleischman.org. Basically, Craig Fleischman and I put together a toolbox for CPG founders, but I think it's anyone that's starting a business up on like organizational structure and financial forecast templates and investor list and pitch deck templates and all these great things, all these great tools. And it's 100% free. It's our give back project. So if anything, I want more entrepreneurs to know about that. We launched that in the last couple of months, and there's been over 6,000 entrepreneurs that have accessed it already. So people can check out fatafleischman.org and support that kind of give back project or let other entrepreneurs in their space know that it's available to them. That's probably the biggest thing that I would ask from the audience watching.
Oh, I love that. I would love to share it out with our audience as well. I'll share that link to our entrepreneurs. We have an email list of just over a couple thousand that we send to. It's growing every day. You can subscribe to our email list on our YouTube channel, on our website, or by joining our hemphallway.com. the community platform. And so I'll make sure that I'll share that information out for you. Can you say the website one more time? Fata Fleischman?
Yeah. Fatafleischman.org.
.org. How do you spell that?
If you look on my LinkedIn, you can just grab it. There's a link right off the homepage there. Awesome.
And I'll send it out. I'll make sure that everybody gets it. I'll make sure that I highlight it or share it on my social media page. So be sure you watch for that. Well, Mike, anything else? What else? What's some advice? I guess our last couple bits of advice that you have for anybody, or any shout outs to anybody else that's doing it right within the industry?
Well, again,
paying attention to?
Yeah, I think I think that the advice for everyone is like build community. I think it's really we wouldn't have built the industry in Canada without like getting together with others and especially all the way along the supply chain there. So anyone that's watching, or for sure the US parties that are really trying to get something off the ground is like, from your local universities and other research facilities to the farmers, to the manufacturers, and then some of the brands or some of the businesses that can help take the consumer message to market. It's really about building that community that's going to create success there. Shout out, if I was going to give a shout out to one person, and maybe you need to hit him up to try to get him on the show. Sean Crew, is one of the other pioneers of the hemp industry in Canada. Obviously, Sean and I go way back, and after Manitoba Harvest acquired Hemp Oil Canada, we became partners together. But Sean's got a wealth of knowledge. He was very active not only in Canada but also in the U.S. as part of the HIA, and just a great guy, and I'm sure would add value to some of your listeners if you got him on the show.
Please. Yes, please. I'd love to have him on. I'd love to have him participate. Like I said, highlighting, really giving people knowledge in a toolbox. For those of you that weren't here in the beginning, all of our interviews are recorded. We share most of them on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Global Hemp Association. And then all of our content is transcribed and shared, searchable on our community platform, hemphallway.com or globalhempassociation.org. You can access from both. So I just want to make sure that the content can get out and shared. And besides that, Mike, thank you very, very much for joining. If there's anything I can do to support you, I would love to. I'd love to continue to have you involved in conversations as we're moving the industry forward and bringing our leaders, really putting leaders together, connecting the supply chain and building the supply chain. And the conversation about the supply chain that we briefly touched on comes up in every one of our conversations. So if you'd ever love to or be inclined to give more detail or dive in where we can ask more questions, I'd love to have you come back on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, happy to support. And I think the industry is still 20 something years young, right? There's a lot of growth and development to happen. So thanks for the work you're doing to help to put people together.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody just shared your website for us. Thank you very much.
Check it out and send us a note on there if there's anything that Greg and I can be helpful with. We're constantly updating the toolbox and adding some other cool things over the next little bit. So happy to get feedback.
It's very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Okay, well, everybody else, thank you for joining today. Like, share, comment, join our other conversations next week, Tuesday at 10 o'clock. I almost said 2 o'clock. And then you'll find all of our upcoming events for the following week also on hemphallway.com or globalhempassociation.org. Okay, thank you very much. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Awesome. Bye.